Greetings, friends of the Apocalypse. This is the Apocalypse Nerd and Adam Scott Glancy. Back, finally.
After an enforced hiatus.
Because we were having some technical issues. We were having some of those post-apocalyptic gremlins. Well,
I appreciate you using the plural form of the first person. We were having technical difficulties. The truth is I was having technical difficulties. But,
well, if you're having difficulties, I'm having difficulties.
Yeah, yeah. But we appear to have found a way around those problems.
So we are back.
We'll know soon enough.
For our fourth episode, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your patience. We're going to be talking about some post-apocalyptic TV shows, and as you saw, most of them take place in the 70s. And it's going to be a few different TV shows and one more modern one. So we're going to go ahead and get started into that. Now, speaking of television shows, let's do our In the News section. So speaking of a post-apocalyptic television, I myself have recently been watching some post-apocalyptic modern television. Like, number one thing that's out there is the Zombieland TV series pilot that appears on the nice look, Scott, the Amazon.com television shows.
On the plus side, you can see it for free.
For now, correct. You know, I don't know what it's going to be like in the future. Now, going into this, I was like, well, Sci-Fi Channel is pretty notorious for being pretty crappy. Now, they've gotten better over the last couple of years. Now, this is Amazon, which has never done television programming before, whereas Sci-Fi has been doing it for quite a number of years. So, giving them that little bit of leeway, I figured, let me check it out.
They did bring us, you know, the Deathlands movie and what is it, Zombie Shark Octopus versus Squid Piranha, or one of those movies?
Yeah, well, that was Sci-Fi Channel. So yeah. Now, mind you, Zombieland was originally proposed as a television show, not a movie. So they're going back to that format. Now, mind you, that being said, it is a little odd watching it without Woody Harrelson and the characters you're used to. Is the writing fantastic? No, it was okay. Again, it's a pilot. They could possibly get better, but I don't know. Again, just again to tell everybody, as we're talking about movies and TV shows and books, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. So yes. If you don't want to hear spoilers, well, I'm sorry. Stop listening. Cover your ears, okay? Duck and cover. And the thing about the show, I said it was. It just seems like, I don't know, there's just some weird things about it so far. Like, I don't know, it's going to be like episode of the week kind of thing. Like, where are we going to go now, and where are we going to try to find people now? It seems like it's not going to be fabulous. I'll tell you that right now.
So it's going to be Logan's Run, the TV show, but with zombies.
That is quite possible. That is quite possible. Well, there is one good thing that did come out of that. I got one of my new favorite quotes from the Zombieland TV show, which I did write down, and I'll post later. I am so close to losing every last bit of my shit. Okay?
That's right up there with Feast. I don't know if you've ever seen Feast. It's a film that revels in being a B monster movie. But one of the characters threw out the line, "We are uppercase fucked." And I've always thought that really summed up some of the bad situations I've seen. I am this close to losing every last bit of my shit.
So that was fantastic. That was a good line. That was worth my 30 minutes of time. You know. So.
Oh, it was only a 30-minute pilot.
30-minute pilot. That's it. So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. So. Other post-apocalyptic TV that I have watched, the new Defiance show on Sci-Fi. It looks nice. They do a good job. It's interesting. They haven't got too much into the details of the full collapse. So basically, it's alien invasion. It's 33 years later. I don't know why the alien invasion failed. They haven't got into that yet. But there's a mix of alien races there now, so it seems like, oh look, beauty races, so you can kind of give it that. The Earth was a bit terraformed, so it wasn't like it was like totally nuked. It was just terraformed. So there's your changed environments. There's some alien technology. They're always looking for alien technology, so it could be interesting. But again, it seems very formulaic television, so far. So there's this whole Romeo and Juliet thing going on.
Little star-crossed alien fucking. I mean,
well, no, there's like, there's the Montagues. There's like the two in this town. There's this whole, power struggle between the two families. So the daughter and the son. So it's got that. It's kind of stupid. It's like, whatever. Why do we need that?
So they're stealing from Shakespeare. They're going.
Yes.
Okay.
So but we'll see how it pans out. I mean, it's got some. I said it looks cool. We'll see. So I've watched that, and so I think it's fairly interesting. That's it in regards to post-apocalyptic TV. Oblivion came out. I haven't seen that yet, but I've heard it's okay.
It's going to have to be better than okay to survive having everybody's favorite space alien, Mr. Cruz, in it. Just not a Cruise fan anymore. Every time I see him, I can't help but think, oh, look, I'm watching a bipolar manic depressive bounce around on the screen. I just can't get over how bug shit crazy the guy is. So it's really going to have to be awesome to get past the whole Scientology whack job.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, he's redeemed himself in a couple movies here and there, but overall it's kind of like, but we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. So I haven't seen that yet, and I've came across, in the way of gaming, I came across a neat little iPhone and Android game, free game. It's a zombie-related game called Into the Dead. It is an interesting time waster. It is a infinite running game. Basically, it starts off, the picture is, you've crashed in a helicopter. Now you're up, and now you're running through zombies. Just constantly running through zombies. It's just left, right, you pick up weapons, you fire. That's it. Nothing to it. It's free. So you'll get about 5-10 minutes of amusement out of that, and then not want to play it again for a week, and then you go to your next time-wasting game for 5-10 minutes, and that's how these games work on the iPhones, typically. It's like, waste my time to move on to the next one.
What you call your basic casual gaming, I guess.
Exactly. Oh, I do that a tremendous amount now. So that's something I found there. So that's my portion of In the News. Have you come across anything
the closest I can do for In the News would be, let me see if I can make this screen share thing work, where I'll try and throw up a poster or a promotional thing for the movie The Bay. Okay, The Bay is filmed by Barry Levinson. That's the guy who did films like Wag the Dog and Toys with Robin Williams, or going all the way back to films like Diner with like Steve Guttenberg and Mickey Rourke way back, and Tim Daly was in the damn movie. So anyway.
Oh, and it looks like we are back to our old problems. Looks like we've lost Mr. Glancy again. He was having some internet issues before, so it looks like we have lost him. For our one viewer up there, I do apologize. We just can't seem to get through these technical issues. Well, looks like he's back.
Wow,
Glancy.
It just signed me out. It was really hilarious. I was.
Yeah. And we're looking at a frozen picture of you. Can you see it? Look at you.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's your doppelganger, man. What's going on over there in Seattle?
I don't know. That time it was not the internet connection. It was simply that all of a sudden signed me out of Google Plus.
Interesting.
Just signed me right out. So
okay, I've determined now. Technology hates you.
Yeah, clearly, I'm going to be fine after the apocalypse. Once all the technology's gone,
Yeah.
I'll be, rocking with Doc, and it'll be great. I'll just go back to flints and stone knives. It's going to be awesome. I was trying to say that The Bay was made by Barry Levinson, who made a lot of films that don't really lend themselves to horror. But he was approached to do a film about how fucked up and polluted the Chesapeake Bay is. But he kind of came to the conclusion that, it's not really, there's no documentary that's going to get anyone's attention, because there's plenty of good documentaries. So instead he took everything that was true about the Chesapeake Bay being polluted and dead and, possibly filled with mutants and growth hormones from, chicken plants. He turned it into a monster movie. And I throw it out there as an apocalypse film because it has a lot of the tropes of an apocalypse movie, a micro-apocalypse, much like the Crazies, for instance.
Yeah.
It's all shot. It was shot for $2 million, very low budget. They shot it on cell phone cameras, where they just had the actors hold the cameras and improvise, and just had people sort of improvise scenes and things in emergency rooms. It's kind of like a documentary, a fake documentary assembled from found footage, traffic cams, security cameras.
Oh yeah. You were telling me about that the other week. Okay.
Yeah, Skype conversations, and some of the most chilling stuff is always, to me, in any kind of apocalypse movie, if they're going to show the apocalypse in motion as it's happening. One of the things that always chills me out is the stuff where you show the professionals in their bunker, in their office, trying to manage the problem. They do that in Threads.
Yep.
They do that in films like, Failsafe. The old nuclear Armageddon film with Henry Fonda and Walter Matthau, where they're showing the professionals trying to come up with an answer for the problem. They do it in the old version of The Crazies.
Yep. So in this movie, you get to see everybody getting close to losing every last bit of their shit.
Yes, and the really nasty thing about it, and again, here's your spoiler. It takes some of the tropes of zombie movies. It does things that are zombie movie-like. And what would be even more hilarious if people had reacted to the crisis like it was a zombie movie instead of shooting people in the head as if they were zombies, when really that's not what the problem was. Because
media is so saturated. That would be an interesting twist, because media is so saturated with the zombie this and that, so people are like, oh, zombies, just to show that, but it really isn't. Yeah, that would be cool.
Like they get bitten, so they're like, oh, we have to chop off my arm and burn the stump because I got bit by a zombie. You chop off your arm for no reason.
Okay, so if anybody's listening to this and as a filmmaker, you can't have our idea.
Too late. I really wanted them. Yeah, too late. I wish they'd. Never mind. Moving along. The thing that's most chilling about the film is the problem that begins horribly killing everybody. By the time the problem is killing them in a way you can see, it's too late. There's no fixing it. And more importantly, by the time people are coming down with it and dying horribly, you've already got it. The conditions of to decide whether you're going to die next have already passed you. There's no point in being smart from that point forward. It's too late.
You're done. You're done.
Yeah, you're done, and it's a die roll whether or not you're going to make it or not. You don't know. Either you've got it or you don't, and you just don't know until you're dying. And then it's too late. It's really quite grisly. Quite grisly.
Nice.
I'm going to give The Bay, tell people it's worth a look. Absolutely worth a look.
Is it available in streaming or Netflix?
I believe it's available. Now that poster I put up mentions that it's available on iTunes. It's also in video stores right now. So you should be able to also, I don't know if you can get it through Netflix. It's not streaming on Netflix, but local video store, go hit them up. They'll have it. And certainly Amazon, iTunes seem to have it as well. Or Amazon streaming. So it's around.
All right. I'll have to see what I can do to track that down myself. Okay. TV shows. We're going to talk about some TV shows. The first thing we're going to talk about is the trifecta, the hat trick of Gene Roddenberry's 1970s post-apocalyptic television pilots.
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
all have right here.
Okay,
So,
hold on. I've got to double screen this, right?
okay.
I'm gonna put John. I'm gonna put John Saxon on the top of mine.
Oh,
The dashing John Saxon here with Planet Earth, Strange New World,
Genesis
and
2.
Genesis 2. Yep.
Now everybody will see that they're on DVDs. They're actually were available. It's a little interesting little thing they got going. The Warner Brothers the archive collection. If you go to the WB website, they have like a lot of movies that are not ever been put out in DVD. They're not available. But what they're doing is they're producing them basically on demand. They're like printing them up. They're not. I mean, it's no frills DVDs. That's it. You know, they're basically printing them out as you order them, but they made available like these types of movies. I've gotten the Thunder the Barbarian collection from them. They're not remastered. There's nothing special about any of these things. There's no features. Basically, they took the best copies they could find and digitized it. That's it. Completely
And
no frills.
before I went and got these off the archive, the Warner archive, I actually owned bootlegs because that was the only place to get them. But now that these are out, I'm not going to stick with my incredibly badly recorded bootlegs.
Oh, yeah, I think I had those as bootleg, crappy DVD bootlegs. That there was this one vendor who used to always come to Gen Con and other conventions, which now he's not. He doesn't show up anymore because they've kind of banned him because of his,
Yeah.
I guess his business practices of bootlegged and copied movies.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, it ain't available anywhere. Who's he hurting? He's not taking anything out of anybody's pockets. But anyway. All right, so we're going to talk about them because these are like three post-apocalyptic television shows that Gene Roddenberry tried to get on the air in the 70s. Like the first one was, I think it was like 73, 74, 75 is I think how they came out, if I remember correctly. Like Strange New World was 75. And yeah, and that was the first one, Strange New World. So it was like 75, maybe 75, 76, 77. I'm not 100%
No,
sure.
it's the other way around. And I don't want to pull up IMDb and slow us down just yet, but I wanted to say that, it's more like 73, 74, 75, and the first one is Genesis 2 with the non-John Saxon Dylan Hunt.
Okay.
Because it's Alex Cord is the first one.
Yep, you're right. It's 73 for Genesis 2, 74 for Planet Earth, 75 for Strange New World. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now, but I am going to start with, let's start talking about, let me pull this up here. Let's start about Strange New World. Now, Strange New World started off with, it's this thing like there's a meteor or a comet coming through, and there was this space station that was up where this organization called PAX was experimenting with long-term cryogenics for space travel and things like that. So
in fact, there's the image of the space shuttle and space station that you see briefly at the beginning of the show, which looked pretty good. The whole opening credits was space station and cryo sleep capsules, but that disappears from the story very quickly.
Oh yeah. So what happened was the PAX organization changed the trajectory of the station and had to go to a long-term orbit and come back to Earth, and it came back like I didn't take notes on that one. Strange New World. I think it was Was it close? What was it? It was 180 years. It took 180 years for it to come back, so it's 180 years later. So they come back, they land on Earth, and then they're driving around in some. You have a picture of their vehicle?
I'm working on it. They get a cool post-apocalyptic vehicle.
Yeah. So they have a vehicle that they're driving around in, trying to find PAX, because apparently PAX had taken their family and other people and put them into underground bunkers with cryo sleep, and they're questing to find these people. Now in that vehicle, actually, because they're looking for the I think the vehicle. I can't remember what it was. I think the vehicle said 19. There was actually paper calendar in there that said just like 1993 is when they went into space and came back. So now it looks like we've lost Mr. Glancy again, so I'll wait till he comes back. But yeah, it took place in 1993. Now they're going around, keep it simple. They find a new city, this city that kind of pulls them in, and it's got a mixture of high tech. There's like high tech. They dress very Roman. It was very 70s, very Gene Roddenberry how they did all that. It's like that mixture of high and low technology. They were dressed like Romans. So it was interesting there. There's a lot of it was like high tech medicine, and they go through this entire episode. Well, at least the part of the first half of the episode. Now, after that, well, we've dropped Mr. Glancy. He's now dropped off. Hopefully, he'll be back here in just a minute. Now, they go through the first half of the episode in this new city, and after they do that, they come back to the second half of the episode, and it seemed like it was totally disjointed. It was like we go from, yes, we're here with these people, and we're going to go find PAX. Then it's like, okay, now we're at the second half of it, when it's like 10 months later, they haven't found what they're looking for yet, because they definitely wanted to make this for a long-term TV series. So they were definitely looking to do multiple episodes. So it seems like they mashed the two ideas together instead of just getting the launch, because it seems like there's a whole lot missing in the middle. I said 10 months later. Well, what happened in those 10 months that you still haven't found anything yet? So basically they come across this old zoo. And basically the people there are... There's two inside people and outside people, and there's animals there. So you get the outside primitives who are, just hunting, fighting for, trying to get food, and you get the people inside who are actually, they did this interesting thing which they've done in Gamma World, I see, which is very interesting, very Gamma World, where the people are descendants of the original, like zookeepers or park rangers are there. So Mr. Glancy's back. Hello, Mr. Glancy. I was...
Fuck you, Internet. Fuck you. All right? Let's just get that out of the way first of all.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you need to call Comcast. But
Fuck. I think I need to send Comcast a letter bomb.
So basically, I was just explaining to them how they got there to the first city, and there was a lot of high medical technology. They dressed like in primitive Roman clothes, and they wanted them to stay. So I mean, there's the go buggy. I just want to throw the go buggy out because you're nowhere if you're not driving around in a giant, clunky, post-apocalyptic vehicle. Yeah, it's definitely some kind of, with those four wheels. It looks like it maybe was put on the chassis of a, maybe like a Lav 25 or something like that.
I don't even think it's that big. I honestly think while that is a practical effect, that thing is actually much, much, much smaller, that you couldn't get the people in it. I mean, I don't think that it's big enough to... I don't really, because I remember when I watched it, there's very few shots of them nearing it. They show them inside it. They show it driving around, and then when it's time to get out, they're just out of it. There's no transition. There's no hatch.
No getting in and out, yeah.
They're just like, whoops, it's far away, so you can't tell how small it is. I think that's actually like a one-person, four-wheel, like dune buggy thing or something.
Oh, yes. In the 70s, they did have those little... Okay, well, if we could remember... Do we all remember the Banana Splits show? Do we?
Oh,
the Banana Split show?
Yes.
Okay.
I was gonna reference Silent Running because Bruce Dern is rolling around in one of those in his spaceship. But if you want to go Banana Splits, okay, that's...
I'm going Banana Splits here, okay?
Okay.
Something Goober and Snork or something like that. Anyway, they're running around these little 70s... four-wheeled on each side, little buggies that like two people could sit in. So yeah, it might very well be built on that chassis of the little Banana Splits go buggies. So
if I remember correctly, those things were like they were like independently. The wheels were independent, so one set would roll forward, another set would roll backwards. So you could just pivot in place and all. Yeah, I think that's what that is with a shell. A miniature shell over it. I don't think that's...
I think you're right. Yeah. So I was telling them that basically, they're at the thing. I didn't get into too much detail about, about the city because there's I don't want to give too much away, but there are some interesting happenings, because these are the people from the past, and they said they finally left the place after, they fucked it up, and they had.
They show up at Paradise, and then they throw a hand grenade in the middle of Paradise,
yeah,
and then they leave.
And they leave.
I mean, which is which frankly sounds like a group of player characters. Again, you go to interesting places and meet new people and kill them and destroy their civilization.
Yeah. Coming in hot, but they I was telling them how basically the second half of the episode, 10 months later. What? It's like, what happened in these 10 months? Because it was definitely meant to be a long-term program, and it seems like they mashed 2 episodes together for this, and there's no continuity. All of a sudden, they're 10 months later, and they're still driving around looking for the PAX station, and they did a good. Well, at least they showed them like their clothes is a bit worn out, and at least they gave it some touches. That the show tried to show us 10 months later, and I said that they came upon a zoo, and there's people on the outside hunting for food. They were primitives, Then the people inside were primitives as well, but they were descendants of the park rangers, and it's very Gamma World-ish because these guys are we must protect the animals, and basically the ranger guide is basically their Bible, and they're following the word of that.
Yeah, the employment manual for the parks rangers, service manual is now their holy book.
Exactly.
It's no e plebnista, but it's still pretty good. Taking the words of the ancients just a little too far.
Yeah. So it's good like that because it says very Gamma World in that sense, where I've encountered that kind of stuff where it's like they're descendants of a particular the tribe. So it's interesting in that respect. So
the tribe is made up of members of a service industry. Like Gamma World, there's a tribe of garbage men or something. Who
there might be
rituals based around going and picking up waste or something.
I think I need to start a Gamma World campaign just for that.
Just for that alone. All right.
Yeah, the cryptic alliance of the Union Local 425 trash.
That's it. They call them. We are the 425s.
Yeah.
What?
So that was Strange New World. That was one of them. So that didn't work. So he goes, "Hey, I'm going to try another one. Let's try this again." So, the one last thing I got to say about the PAX that does appear in Strange New World is very, very Morrow Project-like to me because it's
looking for PAX Prime or whatever they call it.
They're looking for Prime Base because PAX basically is okay. Here's this organization. We're preparing for the end of the world. We put everybody in cryosleep in our big base night, and these people come back. They wake up out of their bolt hole, and hey, we got to go find Prime Base and activate everything and rebuild the world. It's very Morrow Project in that sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all right, but then we move on to Genesis 2, okay?
Yep.
We're going to, Genesis 2 and Planet Earth, we'll kind of go through those a little bit quickly so we can talk more about survivors. Now, Genesis 2 is yet another thing. PAX is still involved with this. Basically, it is, there's a NASA underground lab at in the Carlsbad Caverns in 1974.
And having visited Carlsbad in the 80s, I can confirm that there is indeed a giant underground lab there. So that part they got right.
Okay. So it's this lab, and basically the whole world is, because it's the future. It's 1979.
Well, it's 1979, which is the future for when this was made, which is like 73.
1974. Yeah. So in 5 years. Wow, did we advance in technology? It's kind of like how, if anybody's familiar with the Gary Anderson show UFO.
Or the 80s, everyone's wearing Nehru jackets and
purple wig. But like the show was like 1970, and in the credits they're flashing 1980. It's like, wow.
Yeah, looking back, the future ain't what it used to be.
No. But what happened was in the future they connected. They got these nuclear drilling devices. Okay, they got these nuclear drilling devices, and they built this whole sub-shuttle system that connected the entire world. And like these things were these shuttles that you can see here in the picture. From what I can see in the episode, they could basically, they were showing it that it was going, over 700 miles per hour, and it was like 40%. So they use this to travel throughout the world. So
it's their MacGuffin, so they can get around the world without having to deal with all that boring mutants and radiation on the surface. They just take the subway.
Yeah. So are they hopping turnstiles too? But So it's this whole thing, and it's based with the Continental Defense, and so they build this whole background up of what it is, and then an earthquake happens and caves in the lab, and in the lab they were doing this thing called the gamma mean project, which they're using xenon gas to practice. They're trying to perfect, again, NASA laboratory deep space cryo sleep. So again, the similarities between the two. So the guy gets trapped. Who is the character's name?
Alex Cord. It's Dylan Hunt, which
Dylan
is
Hunt.
a character name that they will then recycle for Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda. Another program about a guy who gets Rip Van Winkled and wakes up in the future that is more primitive than the past, except in Andromeda, of course, it's a galactic apocalypse, like something out of Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. But in this, he Rip Van Winkles into the future.
154 years later, 2133, he's found by the people who are occupying the lab now, the descendants of PAX, And just to move it forward, he winds up escaping because there's this organization of mutants. They're called mutants, and the only state it's called the Terranians, not unlike the Terrakians, but the Terranians.
Yeah, well, let's point out that as Terranians go, they got what's her name, Hartley.
Yes,
it's Mariette Hartley there, and there's a picture of Mariette Hartley with her phallic pain wand. We'll get to that in a second. So when Mariette Hartley, shows up with her phallic pain wand, you understand why a fellow might be duped.
Oh yeah.
Into
following
into believing her. Yeah.
So the mutants are superior than humans because they have like 2 hearts and this and that, and the only outward appearance that makes them a mutant is they have 2 belly buttons. Did you find a picture of the 2 belly buttons?
I do in fact have a picture here of Mariette Hartley with her 2 belly buttons, wearing her space age bikini. It's not a great shot, but let's go ahead and put this one up right here. You go to screen share, and there is Mariette Hartley with the 2 belly buttons, which you can barely see in the picture. But apparently, because she's a mutant, she gets 2 belly buttons. That's how we... Again, why she has 2 umbilical cords, I don't know.
Well, that's why they're mutants, Scott. Okay.
That's why they're mutants.
Now, and of course, the clothes that they wear at PAX, they're basically wearing muumuus, and
in the future, PAX, the PAX guys wear these incredibly shitty muumuus with medallions. Remember the medallions around their necks? Everyone's got a necklace with this like 70s astrological medallion that's roughly the size of Flava Flav's clock. I mean, it's like, this is the future I get? A bunch of guys wearing muumuus with swinger medallions? No wonder Alex Cord, wants to escape from PAX as soon as he wakes up,
So he escapes, he goes to them, because, they give him a history of, like, why PAX is there and so on and so forth. So they escape to go to Terrania, which is their home, and Scott has a picture of that up there.
Lovely glass or matte painting there of terrible, terrible Terrania filled with terrible Terranian mutants.
And on the way there, they do drop a little hint of what else is going on around the world. Like, they're going there, and because they were near Phoenix, Arizona, and he's like, "Well, what about Phoenix?" They're like, "Oh no, Phoenix is a fortress ruled by warlords." I'm like, "Great! Why are we not seeing the fortress of Phoenix?"
We don't have the budget for that.
Oh, okay.
Yes, there's all kinds of exciting shit happening just off screen, but we don't.
But we can't show you that because we don't have the money.
Yeah. Wait till the series gets picked up, then you'll get to see it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so just to fast forward through for this, they go to Terrania, that winds up they're tricking them, now let's just, we will talk a little bit about the Terranians a little bit. They have these things called the pain wands, pleasure and pain. They think humans are, beneath them, and they use them for slaves, and they use this pain stick. It looks like a giant...
yeah, it looks like just what you think.
Exactly, just what you think. No need to elaborate. And but the thing is, it's like their outfits. It's basically they're wearing capes, and it looks like they're wearing thongs that are pulled all the way up over their shoulders.
Yeah, I am trying to find an image of that because
please do.
There's one image over here that is not great, but it shows. Okay, we'll try this. It shows the Alex Cord and Mariette Hartley walking through the Turanian city, which is obviously some college campus. And as you can see, there's this guy with a white guy afro on the left-hand side of the picture with, his bare legs showing and his little, guy diaper and a cape, and he's saluting Mariette Hartley with his dildo of death. So that's pretty much the uniform in Turania is, man diapers, capes, go-go boots, and
basically Barbarella. Okay, but
oh god, that's not a bad. Yeah, that's a good comparison. It's same costume designed by Barbarella. It's not good.
Not good. So I mean, all kinds of shenanigans happen there, and then it ends. So we're not going to give too many spoilers, but again, 1970s, interesting. Now, after Genesis 2, again, that didn't work. So he goes, hey, I'm going to try another one. So he tries a third one called Planet Earth. Now, with John Saxon, who doesn't like a handsome man? So, but now it's basically, it's not really it seems like it's a continuation, but it's more like a reboot because we lost Mr. Glancy again. Now, it's more of a reboot because they glaze over the whole thing of him waking up, him getting there, and they just give you a little background on what happened. So basically he's trying to restart it again. But basically what happens is they restart it, like everything's going on, he's been there for months, and whereas before they were in this dark underground cave, now they are, PAX is more of like a dystopia. It kind of looks like Star Trek, settings. It's this dystopia. They're all for peace. They got the 70s outside buildings that you would typically see like a Logan's Run or something like that. So now the thing is, what happens with that is they're more organized. They're traveling throughout the country, and when they're doing that, he's ahead of the Hunt is ahead of these search teams, and they're going around the country trying to find people, trying to pick things up. Now, the interesting thing is the uniforms that they're wearing are very much a precursor of Star Trek: The Next Generation uniforms. It's like these ugly-looking unitards that, not unitards, but like these uniforms that they're wearing, all one-piece suits, and they have communicators that they talk. It's not in the handheld, it's a little on-the-chest communicator thing. So it's just like when he's writing Next Generation, he goes, hey, you know what? I liked what's on Planet Earth. I like those ugly uniforms that are one-piece and communicators on the chest. Hello, Mr. Glancy. Now, your internet really sucks, but
yeah, it really does. Nothing has happened all day with the internet. It's gone down 3 times.
Nice. Now we'll talk about that later. But I've been giving the background to Planet Earth, saying that it's not really. It seems like it's a continuation, but it's really more of a reboot than anything else.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to start over, and I told them that's what Hunt does, and the precursor to Star Trek: The Next Generation uniforms and communicators.
You know what I got to throw out here? Here, let's go. Let's throw this image out onto the screen here. This is. Hold on a second. This is the team. There's this one actually has something where it's he has a team of like-minded helpers. The main one I want to point out, of course, is in the back there, wearing a terrible, glam rock wig, is Ted Cassidy, who played Lurch on The Addams Family, who's in actually both Planet Earth and Genesis 2, playing the same character, the White Comanche.
The White Comanche Warrior.
White Comanche Warrior, whatever the hell that means. We don't even really know what that means.
So now everybody saw those horrible uniforms. Yeah, that's where the Next Generation uniforms came from, right there, 1975, yeah. Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah, he was already planning to fuck up the uniforms even back then.
Exactly. So basically, this is this episode. It's like episode of the week. It's like what kind of shenanigans can we get into? Again, it plays off just like that. Not as a pilot. It's like they're going through the tunnels and they're trying to find people. The interesting thing about it is it starts off with them. They encounter this group of mutants called the Kriegs.
The Kriegs. Let's go ahead and pull up our Krieg photo. Oh, that's a terribly small Krieg photo. I can do better than that. Hold on just a second.
Now, the Kriegs also have terrible uniforms as well. They wear all purple.
Yeah. That's how you know they're the bad guys, is that they're in these fascist military uniforms, but they're purple. So they're not nearly as intimidating as they could be. But however, you look at this guy, and he's got the big, he's got a nice scar, and he's got some. He's got this big lumpy. Oh, is that a proto-Klingon forehead there in front of us? I do believe it is.
It may be. It also he looks. They also with their uniforms and their look. They definitely, like you had brought up, they look like the Gamma World mutants, the Serfs.
Oh yeah. I think the folks, whoever was doing the illos on Gamma World, may have tapped into that image, because it was militaristic mutants, and then they had the big bumpy central ridge middle of their head. I don't know.
So they encounter these guys. These guys want technology, and
but only for war. That's why they're called the Kriegs, and PAX only wants technology for peace.
For peace. That's
right. In fact, here you go, Jared. I've actually got there's your surf. So
surprisingly, very similar to the Kriegs. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So and what was interesting was, when they encountered them, they were driving around in cars, and of course they're all like, of course the people from the future, oh, what are these? And he's like, these are cars. There used to be millions of them on the road. That whole
like to the buffalo, like you're describing.
Exactly.
There were once herds of them
roaming the earth. But what I found interesting was that they were running on wood gas fuel system. So that's pretty innovative, and it's a real thing. You actually saw that if you ever watched the first season of The Colony on television, they build a wood gas fuel system to run a generator. So it's a real thing. So it was interesting that they actually threw that in there. So
that's the first time. Fuel system, and then it's turned up. It's turned up in other post-apocalypse things since then. But I wouldn't have never heard of it if it wasn't for Gene Roddenberry. So kudos to you, Gene.
Yeah. So, and then the episode just gets into the episode, like they encounter Amazons and the Battle of the Krieg. So it gets very formulaic. But again, they're interesting.
Oh, well, let's just throw out how totally Gene Roddenberry it is, where the Republic of Ruth, or whatever it's called, is
Amazons, women rule.
Is the women's lib, or women's lib gone mad, I think, is actually his journal entry as he's talking about it. And sure enough, before you can say Jack Robinson, they've taken our hero's shirt off and have decided to sell him. Yeah, the first thing they do is take off his shirt and sell him at Oxygen, and the price goes way up. And yes, he has to outwit these dirty feminists. As part of his,
very Gene Roddenberry.
yeah. I'm going to go ahead and say that this, and of course, how does he outwit them? He outsexes one of them. That's the even better, where he does the whole thing about how manly man he is, and they fall for his manly madness, and it's just like, wow.
It's so 70s. It's so 70s.
Yeah.
And
it's extra special.
And of course, what my favorite part of it was after everything, all the shenanigans happened, they're back at PAX base, and it's closing, and the closing monologue that's going on. They do say at the end, "An Earth reborn, 1,000 new adventures. This has been one of them."
Yeah.
I'm like really? Come on.
We swear that this isn't a one-off. We're gonna get picked up. I just know it.
Exactly. This has been one of them. So, Yeah, so of course, the whole thing is they're trying to be, again, very Gene Roddenberry, being very, oh, we're going to rebuild the world, we're going to make things nice again, very, that idealistic thing. Again, very Gene Roddenberry. And I'm like,
As long as guys are in charge and women know their place, we're going to rebuild the world.
yeah. Well, but all the shows are like that. And of course, they're trying to bring the world back and restore it. And of course, I say, and of course, let's see if we remember the quote. So you tell me the movie it's from, Scott.
All right, go ahead. Quiz time.
Restore it? Why? I like death. I like the misery. I like this world.
oh, you're killing me. No, I haven't got a clue. I know it's familiar. No, I don't remember.
Think of a 1980s kickboxing action star.
I'm sorry. This is a Jean-Claude Van Damme flick?
Yes.
Android?
Cyborg.
Cyborg. Oh, God, Cyborg. Yeah, that's full of poop. I'm sorry, sir. I have never seen Cyborg all the way through. There have been a couple of attempts.
Oh, that's a guilty pleasure of mine. I like that movie. I actually follow him on Facebook. He's actually released a director's cut of it, which he found all the cutting room floor footage of stuff that he wanted to make the movie, and he's actually restored stuff and digitized it, and he's been showing that with a couple other movies around the country, and they're going to be releasing it. So I'm curious to see this cut, that because it's like that's not what I wanted, and so he's cobbled it back together. So we'll see what happens.
It's not always an improvement when the director puts in everything he wanted to remove. I cite to the extended cut of 1941, or perhaps the Apocalypse Now extended version.
Well, there's some decent stuff in the Apocalypse Now extended version. Now there's some stuff that did not need to be there. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a couple of bits where it looks like they just left the camera running, and whoever wandered in front of it, that's what they got that day.
Yeah.
But even though it has the word apocalypse in the title, it is not an apocalyptic movie. So let us move on to the other side of the ocean, where shamefully, they always seem to know how to do it better than we do.
And we are talking about here, people, Survivors, 1975. Put together by the fabulous Terry Nation.
That's right.
Who has written such classic, he's written a lot of Doctor Who's, Blake 7.
Blake 7. That's where that is the bleakest science fiction out there. I mean, okay, we all know they're wearing cellophane. We all know it's 70s budget.
And I'm okay with that.
But the writing on that show was the grimmest.
It was very good. So this was originally created by Terry Nation. It went on for 3 seasons. Now, Survivors in a nutshell. Okay, it starts off with episode 1. Basically, there is a global pandemic that breaks out. Okay, something's released at Hardly in a lab, which me and Scott have theorized that it might have been somewhere in Russia. Even though you see a gentleman of Asian descent. But what was your theory on who he was?
Well, I still thought that even though he was the guy handling the Erlenmeyer flask that drops into the camera at the beginning of every episode with this resounding whoops apocalypse, they drop it on the floor. The very fact that his first stop is Moscow sort of told me that this was probably just a Soviet of Asian descent. Perhaps, there's a problem at the lab. You come back to Moscow and explain what happened. Sure, we took care of it. There's nothing to worry about, blammo. And besides, if the one group of people who were really into biowarfare experiments in the 70s was the Soviets. They have a huge history of biowarfare experiments, and there's a Kazakh gentleman named Ken Alabak who defected to America sometime in the 90s. He was the number 2 guy at Biopreparat, which was the Soviet bioweapons division, and he came back with all kinds of horrible stories about the stuff the Soviets were cooking up in the 70s. So the idea that it was a Soviet lab, works for me. So, anyways, accident behind the Iron Curtain,
Martin?
but the problem doesn't stay there very long.
Nope, it spreads throughout the world. It's like a super flu that breaks out. So again, 1975, he was definitely a little bit ahead of the curve because now the whole thing with global pandemics and stuff has been very topical the last 10, 15 years. But he was talking about this in 1975. So
not to mention he's ahead of the curve on Stephen King's super flu from Captain Trips from the 1979 The Stand.
Yeah.
So Terry Nation's even out in front of King on that one. So all props and chops to Terry Nation on this.
Exactly. So we have that, and it's a very interesting. Facts that I've learned from watching because I've watched probably the first there's 3 season people, and it's not just a English. I originally had just the English versions of it because I have a multi-region player, but they did come out with it an American version, so you're able actually to get your hands on it for American DVD players, probably because of the 2008 series that came out, so they released the original in America. So from what I've assessed from it, they figured that they say like 1 in 5,000 people survived this plague. It was a massive plague. So they figured that at one point they said that there's maybe 10,000 people left in Britain. And I did some research and I looked up that based on the population of Britain in 1975, 1 in 5,000 survivors would indeed be around 10,000. So they actually did. Sounds like they did their numbers a little bit. So the pandemic breaks out, and it focuses. And the way the show originally focuses on one character, Abby Grant, and it starts off with her and her leaving, and then it starts picking up other characters here and there. You got Greg. And you have, let me see, some of the characters. You got Greg. You got who else?
Tom Price, the bum.
Oh yeah, the bum that you want to hate.
It's easy to hate Tom Price in the original series because he's the guy who's useless. The only thing he has is he just was immune.
Yeah. So, who was it? It was Greg.
He survived, and he proceeds to be a total waste of space.
And Jenny. There's a few main characters that go through the show. So, as I go through the show, it's initially the first season's all about her, traveling around. And it's kind of interesting to be. He really talks about the whole. He really starts a series off talking about everything because the character Abby's reflecting on before it even happens, like. If all things broke down at...
In fact, there's Greg in the middle.
Yep, there's
Abby Grant in the front with her short, and Jenny in the back. And Abby Grant was also the villain from Terry Nation's Blake 7.
Yes.
She was the long-running villain on that show. But anyways, you're saying.
So she reflects on, what if everything... She was like, before this happens, right when it's at the beginning, what if it... Because things started failing. And she's like, what if everything broke down at the same time? What about the infrastructure? So they're reflecting on this while this is going on, and then things really break down, Now, other things they talk about, they really do talk about what happens when things break down, because they meet other characters. She meets, at one point they meet this grad, because throughout the entire first episode, she's looking for, first series, she is looking for her kid. Eventually they do settle down, but she's always looking for her kid because she thinks he might still be alive, and that's her whole thing. They encounter this groundskeepers at his school early on, talking about we got to rebuild. Because what's going to happen? Because they really do delve deep into what's going to happen. Okay, yeah, we could scavenge for a while, but eventually it's going to run out. What about these new generations growing up? They don't know how to fix anything. We have to relearn everything. These kids, they don't know how to fix things, how it's going to be, how to rebuild anything.
The other factor that becomes sort of a plot point in one of the later episodes is the one guy I was talking about. Everybody's got to get pregnant right away.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that 10,000 people is going to be winnowed down to 5.
Oh yeah.
With no replacements. And the gene pool is going to shrink and shrink and shrink until we're all going to have 6-headed kids, all of them with hemophilia. And The idea that a woman's choice to choose might go out the window in the face of sort of species demands. We've got to get the population back up. Was the plot of one of the episodes.
Oh yeah, it's a prominent thing, and also throughout it is because also you're not just losing. You had 1 in 5,000 survive, and that continues to dwindle down. Because again, they talk about because you have people killing each other off for stuff. You have things like we had a whole community of people die because they got sick from fish because there was mercury poisoning in the water, in the river, from the factories that were no longer functioning, and they all died. Like a small group of people died from eating fish.
Yep.
And all this shit. It's all about things they really do address how things broke down, how everything's all fucked up.
One of the biggest crises I remember in the first season after they find that manor house to live in. They get all these supplies. They get all stocked in for the winter. They scavenge, and they get all the bags of flour they can find. They all lock it up tight in the basement of the manor house. And then they have this thing where it rains and rains and rains, and because nobody cleaned the gutters on the house, the basement floods.
And they lose
everything they stocked in, gone, and now they're going to starve. And now they got to run around like chickens with their heads cut off and fix this problem. And as a post-apocalyptic survival thing, the survivors really did a good job in doing nuts and bolts about how you're going to get by. It was not about character drama where people are going to stand around and have to argue with each other about how they don't like each other and your way of giving orders, makes my Johnson small. No bullshit about that. People just get on with doing what they have to do.
Oh yeah,
and the adventure is always the situation they're in, not necessarily the conflict between the characters. There is some conflict. There's plenty of conflict.
Oh, there's plenty of conflict, especially between Greg and Abby, because there's one episode where she's because they form their own community, and she kind of she's the figurehead. She's in control, and like Greg, was picked up the role as a second commander. In one episode, he's like, "Listen, Abby, you're the figurehead, but I'm the manager. I have to do the dirty work. I have to do everything." So you have that conflict.
She can do the inspirational speeches and she can make the decisions, but implementing the decision
was all great.
One of the things, and of course they cover everything right down to law and order. I mean, there's the episode where a member of the community turns up dead, raped and murdered, and they have to do an investigation. They have to become the cops. They have to have a trial. They have to decide how to mete out justice. And boy, everything that can go wrong with that equation does go wrong. I won't say how, but it's screwed up. They do the best they can, and the endings are not. Yeah, and the endings are not good.
Yeah, so it's very grim. They really touch on a lot of these things, and you have all kinds of problems because you have like a former politician forming a group saying, "Oh yes, we're martial law is declared, so now we're representatives of the government." So you have all these kind of yahoos trying to do all this stuff.
I like the guy who was the British Lord, who was like the third son of the British Lord, who because he wasn't going to inherit the land. And they didn't like him for politics. He went in the army. So he learns all these military skills. The plague happens. He comes back from the British Army of the Rhine, I guess. He gets back from, NATO. Goes back to his family estate and is like, well, I guess I'm the Lord, like a medieval lord. And he starts trying to run his estate like it's the good old days, And he's got, he's not really a bad guy at all. But the very fact that he takes this attitude that, my ancestral land and it's my stuff and I'm the Lord and you guys have to do what I say causes a revolt, Yes. And their community falls into this protracted sort of guerrilla war where all the people who've come to his estate for shelter just won't put up with his arrogance. And now they've got this sort of war going on.
It was Garland. Jimmy Garland was his name. Yeah. Garland's War was the episode.
Yeah, and that was actually a really interesting story because, frankly, on one level, I mean, the one thing about the British, I'll tell you, when they're doing their heavies, very rarely are they 100%. You don't understand them at all. Even even the opposition in these stories are very relatable. You know, they're not just, I don't know, guys with disco wigs and crazy boots and pain dildos. You know, which
Yeah.
is the Turanians. They're just 100% evil. Like the Kriegs are just 100% evil. Everybody that they deal with in this is really believable, and they have good motivations, and you know, it worked.
Yeah, it was a very. I mean, it was. I mean, not all. I mean, not all those episodes were winners, but they did very well. I mean, a lot of the ones Terry Nation wrote were good, but even who started doing some of the episodes was the guy who played Greg, Ian McCullen. He started writing a lot of the episodes.
Yeah, and some of them were really good, and they do a great job dealing with, you know, sort of dialing England back to a pre-industrial level. With the artifacts of the old civilization around, but essentially they're back to you know, pre-industrial levels. There's a whole bit with do you remember the episode with the drug dealers? There's this whole thing about, oh my God, they're making drugs, they're making, you know, morphine or heroin or whatever it was, and they must be bad guys. But once you get inside the drug dealer's compound, you realize they're like, we've got to make drugs like this, or there's not going to be surgery. You know, there's not going to be pain relief. You know, where, you know, we've got to make these drugs, and to finance our operation to rediscover pharmaceuticals and rediscover things. They're selling the heroin and the morphine, or the morphine-based drugs. They're selling it to finance the operation, so that, you know, yes, we're drug dealers, but if we don't finance the operation, we'll never have the money to develop the other drugs that we're making. And I just thought that was really, you go in with one idea, and then like, zip, they did it. You know, they always did a good job of flipping the story on you.
Oh yeah, they definitely touched on all the subjects, you know, because some of the characters, like, you know, the Abby character was very idealistic, you know, which was not very realistic, but they touch about that. They touch about, you know, all the, like you said, all the problems, all the things they got to do. You have such a cast of characters, and then anything that could go wrong could, because like like, again, spoilers, people. There's one part they're all set up, they're going good, and a simple thing happens that would probably not be that bad in our society. Is there's a house fire.
Yeah, and
they lose everything, and 2/3 of their people, they're gone. They all die. You know, yeah. So. That's what's good about the show too, is they are not afraid to kill. Again, Terry Nation,
not afraid. Not afraid
to kill characters. Absolutely not. And they lose people. You lose people all the time. So, but a lot of interesting things develop from it, because again, they talk about, because again, you're not just losing people to the plague initially. You're losing people to violence. You're losing people to, again, sickness, disease. So you're losing more and more people.
They did a number of episodes where rabies is the big boogeyman of the episode.
Rabies.
And if anything looks like a 28 days later rage zombie, it's somebody out of their goddamn gourd on rabies.
Yeah. And there was a whole episode, like, when they go to this new town. Somebody needs to have a baby, so they need some medical equipment. So one of the people volunteers to go to one of the smaller cities to get the equipment, and they generally stayed away from cities because they were festering pits of disease because of all the dead bodies. But so he goes there, and he contracted bubonic plague because it came back. So he got it. He was isolated, and he died. He died to get the medicine to help the other woman. So then they start this whole protocol. If anybody leaves and comes back, everybody knows, they quarantine them for 10 days.
Yes, yeah, because, gee, we're a little short on antibiotics, so that's it. You've got to be isolated. That's the only thing you can do. It's like back to medieval techniques.
Yeah. So, and and they really do touch on all this stuff. So I found it very interesting. And then there was the one episode with the guy who was the trader. He had trucks. He had guys who were wearing gas masks and suit going into all these cities and scavenging anything you need. Rakes, guns, food, canned goods, smokes, tobacco,
medicine. And these guys were tooled up with these like biohazard gear and military style, you know, rifles.
Weapons.
And you think, wow, these guys have really got their shit together and they're trading. And then there's this part where you realize, oh shit, we're dealing with crazy people, because what are they trading all the goods for?
Gold.
Yeah.
He thinks, well, gold's going to come back. Things are going to come back to where they were. Things are going to go back to normal. No, because you have a lot. Because you have a lot of people who are in denial. They're like, oh, things will get back. Things will go back. So we're going to get all this gold. It's like,
and that'll eventually be the new currency of whatever new regime comes up in England. And I'm like, oh boy, that was bad. But the worst thing about those douchebags was they'd go into a town, loot it for everything they could take out, and then they'd burn the town down so that any supplies they couldn't carry out were destroyed, therefore making the supplies they have more valuable.
Yeah, they were saying, oh, well, we're cleansing the town because of all the disease and stuff. No, you couldn't get everything, and you want nobody to have anything, so they're burning the towns down.
Yeah. That was particularly insidious. The one thing that I was going to point out, speaking of burning towns, was the one thing I liked about the episode The Fires of London. There's like 2 episodes where they go back into London. They find a community still living in London. But
underground, isolated, they travel through the subways because rats have infested the city so bad that you cannot travel above ground.
Yeah, rats and rabid dogs, and so they're down underneath the city, living in these sealed-off tunnels. And the one thing that was really got me though was the idea that where they look at London at night and it's just the whole city's on fire, because when a fire starts, it doesn't burn out until it runs out of material. So the city is sort of perpetually smoldering and will be for years.
Yeah, because there's nobody to put it out.
Yeah,
absolutely nobody. So overall, again, I got through, like I said, the first season and a half again. Very interesting series. If you can,
but you've watched the whole thing. You've watched the whole thing front to back.
I've never seen the 3rd season.
So. Oh, really? Okay.
I never saw the 3rd season, so I've been kind of rewatching it, and it's like, oh yeah. So it's kind of bringing that, but it's a good series. If you have a chance to get your hands on it. Like I said, it's 3 seasons, and it's a total of, it's like each season's about 13 episodes, I think. It's a 6-disc set. So, but it's definitely worth your while to watch, if you take the time to watch it.
Any fan of the Apocalypse, the Brits do it really well. Or at least they did it really well in the 70s, because when they re-released this in
2008,
yeah, it is not the same series.
Yeah,
everybody's prettier. First problem.
Yeah. Scott's gonna definitely have to. There was a total of 12 episodes, I think. So, yeah, Scott's gonna need to talk to this a little more, because I started watching the first episode and I really could not get that much into it. Yeah. Because let me read something here from Wikipedia about the writers. They claim, it says here that they claimed that the new series retained the spirit of the 70s show, but Hodges, which I guess did it, concentrated on the hope and the humanity, which was said to be an attempt to make it less depressing to watch than the original.
Yes, there's a lot of tragedy in the original. It's a lot of your favorite characters get whittled down. I will note that nobody dies from the main characters in this one.
But that's what made it realistic, because people die, and then Terror Nation was very good about that. So yeah, in this new series, people die, and I've seen parts of it here and there, so I'm not very well versed in it. I'm making judgments, but it's from what I've read and what people told me, it's not very it wasn't like, because in the original series it was a oops, we dropped the chemical and now things got out, total accident. But didn't you say, Scott, in this one, there's a whole conspiracy theory going on now?
There's a whole conspiracy behind it, and you start off where it starts off in the first episode. Okay, first of all, the plague goes much faster. They wipe out civilization in 30 seconds, very quickly in the first episode. I think the entire first episode of The Survivors is actually the fall of civilization.
Yeah, I did watch that. It's the whole breakdown, and you got to get out of London, and this is what's going on, and they're trying to institute their emergency plans, but they're stalling, and it's too late. Everything's out of control. There's no pulling back. It's done.
So that you don't see any of that necessarily. The first episode goes much quicker as far as the apocalypse, at least in my opinion, it went much quicker. And then very quickly after that, they established that despite the fact that supposedly everything is wiped out, there are guys in biohazard suits lurking around. And what it eventually turns out to be, it's not the government. It looks like the government for a while. You think maybe what you're dealing with is a government some sort of bunker full of CDC style British, guys. But what it turns out to be is some creepy pharmaceutical company. Because as everyone knows, big pharma is the evilest thing in the world.
And that's pretty lame right there. I come on, seriously? Why can't it just happen? Why does there have to be, it's a plot. It's an evil plot for them to do this, or it's this, or it's
not
this.
Exactly an evil plot for them to do this. It is basically big pharma's working on a new flu vaccine. They're testing it in the third world where they don't have to, obey any of these pesky protocols, So
and then it runs loose. Okay.
Yeah, so they go to some libertarian paradise like the Congo or China or something and test it over there, and oops, the plague starts over there. But because it takes a while for the plague to gear up to full speed, the pharmaceutical company has just enough time to tell all of the rich people, all those 1%ers that we are supposed to hate so much, that the plague is coming. But we've got a lifeboat we're building, and you all rich people can get on the lifeboat. And so one of the plot points is that Greg's character, his wife, gets on the lifeboat with their son because her new husband is some rich muckety-muck. And so his family's disappeared into this lifeboat. And they don't say where the lifeboat is. It's an island somewhere that they've built a facility. And the company is trying to find a cure to the disease, but that's just so they can come back and be in charge of everything again. That's they're gonna make lemonade out of lemons. Where sure, we've wiped out 99% of the population, but when we find the cure, we can come back and we'll be in charge of everything, and that's their plan. And so
it sounds like too many people surviving. Because again, back to the original episode, with the whole thing with when they go to London, there's the 2 episodes where they start hearing some radio. The radio guy picks up the Isle of Wight, like they're trying to rebuild a community there. He picked up. They're like, well, what about the rest of the world? It's like, well, he doesn't really pick much up. He did not that long ago pick up a radio transmission from Cairo, and they say there's 12 people left in Cairo.
Well, 12 people that guy knows about.
Exactly.
That operator knows about. But they don't give you a lot of the rest of the world. They only have 1 season. They mostly concentrate on.
I think there was 2. There's actually 2 series, I believe. 2 series, 12 episodes total.
Total. I'm sorry. Yes, there's two series of 6.
Yeah.
And it's all either Abby and Greg, and they take the bum from the first film, the first series, Tom Pike, who was utterly horribly useless. In every way that he could be useless. And they turn him into a good-looking young guy who's a sociopathic criminal who's escaped from prison. Because
that's much more interesting. I would rather have an ugly, old, nasty bum who's completely useless, who does nothing but cause problems.
Yeah, well, that guy, this guy is very well adapted for the apocalypse because he's
a scumbag.
He's an utter scumbag who can just get things done. Well, anyways, there's this whole conflict with this. They have a conflict with this group that's building itself up from the ground up, but they're full of rules and regulation and power plays and people being dicks. So our heroes strike off independently, and then there's the creepy corporation. And again, it all comes down to that series was built on finding the mystery behind the conspiracy, figuring that out, not day-to-day survival, not how to rebuild a society. It's about figuring out the conspiracy and interpersonal conflicts, people arguing and yelling at each other. And I should point out,
that's always good. Who doesn't like that?
Yeah, because that's what we need more of in The Walking Dead. Less zombie attacks, more arguing. And the other thing is everyone's so goddamn pretty. That's one of the things that also bugs the shit out of me, is that even by British standards, and the British are better at this than us.
Yeah.
Our TV shows, everyone's a goddamn JCPenney's, underwear model. But
isn't that everybody in the world?
Yeah. Well, after the plague, apparently.
Oh yeah. Only the pretty people survive. Yes.
There's a fair amount of that. There's a few ugly people, but you can tell that they're the bad guys because
they're ugly.
Yeah. So I cannot recommend the 2008-2009 Survivor.
It does not. Yeah, so it does not compare to the original. Again, the original is very gritty, very grim, and the British are good at that. Threads. They're just better at.
Yeah.
They're better at being more realistic. It's gritty. It's real. It's real. Because again, Terra Nation addressed survival and the day-to-day living and all the problems that they were going to have and how everything's going to happen. So, much better series. So.
Yeah. I highly recommend The Survivors for anyone who's got an interest in post-apocalyptic, sort of stories, and also this thing is devoid of that. I mean, it's also devoid of the kind of pre-apocalyptic politics. A lot of post-apocalyptic fiction is just this thing where people recast the politics of the day into the post-apocalyptic setting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it becomes, us versus them, rich versus poor, haves versus have-nots, whites versus blacks, whatever bullshit agenda. All of the politics, I don't remember, almost all the politics before the collapse, before the plague, are gone. And
yeah.
anyone who's sort of still clinging to that comes off as utterly ludicrous, as almost mentally ill, that they would be worrying about that kind of thing in the middle of the apocalypse.
Oh yeah, and they really addressed it in the show. They're like, really, you're worried about money? Why? It's like we got to survive, So they do address it a lot. It's very good. So all right, so folks, we're gonna start wrapping up here because we ran a little long. Maybe we had some problems, but I think we're okay at this point. So
I'm going to suggest to Mr. Walls that at some point we try broadcasting this on a different day of the week just to see if it has anything to do with Mondays and my internet traffic or something. I don't know.
We give it a try. We'll just give everybody advance notice.
Yeah.
Now, next week, actually, guys, normally we do every 2 weeks, but to kind of make up for some of our downtime, we're going to actually do another show next week.
Yeah.
Because 2 weeks from now, though that weekend is the HBO Lovecraft Film Festival, which I will be in attendance, and so will Scott. And I'm going to be traveling back from Portland, Oregon, to the penis tip of the country, South Florida, and I'm not going to be back till very late, so we're not going to be able to do it that night. So we're going to not do it from 2 weeks, but we're going to actually do one next week, and then we'll do it 2 weeks after that.
Yeah.
Next week we're going to stay in the 70s because we love the 70s. We love
it's actually a target-rich environment.
It is, and it's got things like leisure suits and.
I wasn't going to go leisure suits. I was going to go, Logan's Run, Boy and His Dog. But all right.
Well, the 70s. Well, the 70s got leisure suits and disco balls and all that kind of fun stuff. Bell bottoms. Who doesn't like bell bottoms? But so what we're going to do in this next show is we're going to talk about a couple of, not because there's a lot, and again we don't want to burn our content up yet, but we're going to touch on a few 1970s post-apocalyptic films. Maybe initially we might stay away from some of the more well-known ones. We might drop on things like we were talking about The Ravagers, which is based off a book called Path to Savagery, with Ernest Borgnine, not well known, No Blade of Grass. We're probably
Richard Harris too.
Yes, that is right. So we're going to probably try to touch on some more like that, and we'll eventually hit the staples, A Boy and His Dog and Logan's Run. But you know what? A lot of people talked about it already. Let's talk about the obscure shit. Because we want to try to bring you something that you might not know about.
I interrupted you when you were going to mention No Blade of Grass.
Yeah. So things like that. As I said, we want to try to bring you things that you may not be aware of. And we will touch on the common stuff everybody knows, Mad Max and all that kind of stuff. But
does Ultimate Warrior count as obscure or well-known?
I'm going to say obscure, because who the hell knows about the Ultimate Warrior? Not many people.
We weren't able to get a DVD release in this continent until recently, or
I
know you got yours. You got yours from Germany.
Yes, I got my original copy of the Ultimate Warrior with Yul Brynner.
Yeah.
It was
an American movie, and he had to buy it from Germany.
In Germany, because again, I have that multi-region player. German version, and it's, again, the menus are simple enough that you can just figure out, okay, Sprechen, that's language. Let me put it on English. But eventually, it came out an American version a couple of years ago. It was like a combo pack with some other horrible movie. But at least I got the American version so I could play it on my Blu-ray player, so I could get the upscaling. So, well, I think that's pretty obscure, unless for people in the know, because there was a previous post-apocalyptic podcast that was out there a couple of years ago, which
they may have touched on it.
Yeah, they only touched on they was suggested to them because one of their viewers like, oh, what about that? They're like, oh, the Ultimate Warrior, I've never heard of that. We'll have to look into that. And it's like, oh, why do you not know about that?
Amateurs, it's amateur night.
Again, I don't claim to know everything. Scott doesn't know to claim everything. But you know what? You got to know more than just Mad Max on the road. Okay, you have to know more than that shit. You know, so to put on a decent show. So we're going to talk about post-apocalyptic movies of the 70s next week. Now, like I always tell everybody, be socially responsible, people. You know, view us. You know, if you're going to view us online, like it on YouTube, like us on Facebook if you already haven't. You know, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook.
Always wear protection.
Huh? Oh yeah.
Always wear protection. Or is it? Or are you talking about a different kind of social responsibility?
A completely different social responsibility. We'll get into that another show. We'll get into that another show.
Okay.
But you know, like us on Facebook. You know, retweet things that we follow us on Twitter. Go to the website. Tell your friends if you have friends who are interested. Tell them to go to the website and watch us. You know, like it on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, like I said before, you know, because all those things help, and it shows that there is an interest in the community, and it helps build it.
And if you don't like it, you know, then don't let it. If you really hate the show, then don't let us waste more of your time by writing up how bad we are. You know, that's just a waste of your time. You don't want to do that.
But you know they're going to do it anyway because that's what people like to do. So, but yeah, if you said it helps us out, it helps you out. Just again, we appreciate it. So
yes, we do.
That's going to be it for this week. Any final thoughts, Scott?
Yes. I will. My main final thought is that holy crap, Gene Roddenberry does not know how to dress people. Holy crap! I have. If for those of you who are out there and get to see Genesis 2, Planet Earth. You and Strange World, you will be stunned speechless by the amazing costumes. They are, oh my god,
it's fantastic. So yeah, that's that. I don't really have much. Again, I talked about a couple of things here and there, and like I said, my favorite quote of the week was, of course, "I am so close to losing every last bit of my shit." Again, that's my favorite quote of the week. Maybe favorite quote of the month. And again, you know, if you guys encounter anything, I've had some people sending me some private messages. I've had people post some stuff, some different things to look at. And don't worry, guys. I've noticed them, and I will look them over, and we'll definitely address those. So don't feel afraid to send us suggestions. You know, we'll definitely take a look at them and see. We'll get stuff worked in as long as it's again, we'll see how interesting it is, see if it's relevant, see see what we could do with it. So that's fine. That's fine. And always remember, Domars are stupid. Never forget that. So
good evening, fellow mutants.
So Scott Glancy, he's out of here. Thank you, sir. Good night. And again, this is the Apocalypse Nerd. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for putting up with us yet again for another week, and we will see you again next Monday for more 1970s movies about the apocalypse. Thank you, and good night.